Hey guys, Mike here. So happy Sunday to everybody, and we're getting ready for the week, and we're going into a new month and quarter here, okay? We put the first quarter behind us. Market closed on Friday, so we'll catch up on some important news on that one because we got to see tomorrow how the market's going to digest that news. And of course, Jerome Powell is speaking Friday as well, if you didn't know anything about that. And so we'll look at, how is the month of April, not just look at just the S&P. We'll look at the overall market. We'll break it down to the Russell because there are two different things going on there to look at. And then we'll look at some areas, some like one stock that's breaking down, a couple of areas where you can look at and say, okay, this is going to be a breakout or not right here. Is that going to continue? And then, of course, earnings. And then there's, and a lot of economic data for sure, a lot of red folder news this week. But also there are three things that are going to happen in the month of April that's really going to dictate where this is going to go here. So if you missed it on Friday here, we had PCE come out, core and headline. Basically everything was pretty much in line, okay? Personal income was a little bit lower than expected. Personal spending was actually much higher than expected. So again, we're still spending, people still making money, people may have 5 part-time jobs, but they're rolling with it, okay? Now, when you look at April, okay, this is an overall look at I don't even think it's just our stock market. I think it's like globally, right? Everywhere there is. And you can see April is a good month. We're actually going to zoom in here. You can see 75% of the time for most markets, April is good. We'll zoom into April. One reason they think this is because, I don't know when everybody else around the world gets their taxes back, but we get ours back in April. Most people do. They wait to the last minute. And of course, they'll pile it in or they'll max out and take that last second time to max out their regular IRAs, that is, and stuff like that. So that could be a reason, definitely could be. But when you look at the overall, like New York Stock Exchange, right? So this is like 2,500 stocks, I believe, so much more than what the S&P and all them hold. And when you look at it, it says best months. We're going to zoom in here, okay? And what I like about this one is this goes from 2003 to 2022. So this is much more recent, right? We're not going back in the 50s to 60s. And you see April is one of those months that's the best month for the overall stock exchange. You can see pretty high percentage there, okay, for the month of April. And so we'll see, that's just overall. So you can see when you see them breadth expand out, that's what's happening there. Now, when you look at just the NASDAQ 100, this also goes for the S&P 500 here. We're going to zoom in. You'll see April, one of the best months. March was as well. And we can see March was a good month for the S&P for sure. But you can see April is definitely one of them. And when we pull it up, it's lower than the overall market actually was. As you can see right there, it's still high. I mean, 65% is nothing to sniff at. So, the market's up between 68 and 73% of the time anyway. Now, when you break this down to something where everybody's looking at, which is still underperformed, still nowhere near its all-time high, this is the Russell, right? You look at the Russell 2000. This is from 1989 to 2021. There's March, which was a good month, right? May is usually a good month. And April is not too bad, right? You can see January, February kind of suck, okay? And we go over the chart, what do you see? November, December, great. You look at that chart, it was November, December. January, February, not good. You go to March, believe it or not, volatile as can be, but actually ended up 3% in March. And here's the important thing to understand about the Russell 2000. And guys, before we continue, please hit that like button. It really helps people find the video. And think about subscribing if you like a finance channel who does not try to talk over your head. And it's this right here. We have returned to the scene of the crime 2 years later. This is where we were almost exactly 2 years ago, okay? Look what happened in April. The thing nosedived. What is the difference? We were in a crash. Look at the MACD. Look at the RSI. Negative momentum. Just pushing everything down. So here we are 2 years later. You look over the MACD and the RSI now, right, on the weekly. Not overbought on the weekly. Plenty of momentum going into this thing, okay? And it's sitting right there, pushing up against it. Nice big close, over the last week and so. And so it has a lot of momentum going in there. Can it break above it? That's going to be the key thing to look at. I showed you guys in Thursday night's video those key levels that it kept breaking on Thursday and stuff. And then finally retest and close right there at, I believe it was a 2024 high, if I'm not mistaken. And when you look at the moving averages, obviously declining moving averages over here, and everything's moving up. The 50s across the 200, the 100's pointing up, the 200's pointing up. And so again, it's just a different time right now. Another thing is return to the scene of the crime. Here's XLE, multiple times, a fourth time in this shaded area below that, actually right at, that resistance line right there, okay? This has been going on since 2022, all right? So here we are. is this going to be the week we're going to break above, right? And when we look at this right here, and we pan out, you see what I'm talking about? Right there on the monthly, you can see going all the way back to 2014, that would be the next level. If that breaks, right, you can push up to that next level. That is only 7% away. Again, if this starts to move up, expect your gas prices when you go to the pump start moving up as well. They usually go in tandem, and I'm going to show you a chart on that of something that's been happening. But again, this one right here, we keep waiting for it. It's kind of getting rejected up there. It's holding and everything. But you can see the lower highs being set, right? And it just can't break through. When you look at the MACD, though, it looks identical. I mean, all of them do. All of them are going into this trend line, or this resistance line, excuse me, with the momentum, okay? On the RSI, the MACD, everything else. And so do we get to roll over again? Do we want to come back down one more time, test that short-term ascending trend line, and then try to go up? Or is it going to be a complete failure? Put in the comments what you think. I'll tell you what, something's going to happen, clearly, because when you look over here, this is the chart I was trying to show you the other day and find. This is the S&P 500 energy sector. This is the stocks. And then this is the price of oil. Look at the gap between the two. That's the price of oil at the bottom. Normally, as you can see, they've been going hand in hand. You've only seen one other time where they got apart even a little bit. And of course, what happened? The prices of oil and the stocks dropped down. But look at that big gap. All right. So either oil prices are going to catch up to the stocks, or the stocks are going to come back down and get closer to the oil prices. And so let me know in the comments which one you think is going to happen there. Again, if you're invested in it, you want it to go up. If you're somebody who don't need your gas prices to go up, you probably don't want this to break out and actually really, really start moving. And so, you know, going into some other things that to watch out for, here's PayPal. It got rejected. I told you, until you get a higher high, all this for nothing. It has not broke that trend line yet. If it breaks that trend line, we're going back down to the other trend line, most likely right there, maybe to get a bounce. But if it can break this one right here and set a higher high, it finally goes back in to try to fill this gap, which has been sitting there, it seems like forever, but it's only been like 6 months. You know, and then if that happens and momentum continues to push, you know, when we come out here on the weekly, you can see when we look at this, you look at that MACD on the weekly right here. I'm going to zoom in here. This thing is trying to finally get above the zero line. It has not been above the zero line. It's actually pushing up through it in a long time, okay? And so you have to get above that for this more longer term type thing. The RSI is above the 50, which is good. You can see the levels, like 76 right there, 89. These are basically your targets if this thing can continue to push. And FinTech's just been iffy all over the place, right? It has good days, bad days, all that good stuff. Now, Palantir, that head and shoulders so far is playing out. We came back up to fill out that right shoulder. Big breakdown on Thursday right here. Also keep breaking that trend line, which was resistance, turn into support. And so if this plays out, again, head and shoulders, I think it's like 69% of the time play out. But again, when you look at the last time this happened, that was like an ugly head and shoulders too, right? And that broke down. Okay, if we go from the move, the bottom to the top of that move, it came down not only to the 50 in the golden pocket to the 0.79. So if you end up running this one down from the bottom to the top right there, or top to bottom, you can see that means it's going to put you somewhere around $18 to $20 range, somewhere in there, if this starts to play out. And then I wish it would get down below 18 and just completely feel that gap right there, and then start its move back up if that's what what's going to happen and stuff. And again, we're coming into some questionable time. April is supposed to be positive, but then May and June, July can be iffy. But again, this can move fast. You see the explosion it had after the last head and shoulders played out. Shopify, there's another one. I told you that MACD has to get above the zero on the daily, and it got like right up in there and started to coil over. And when I'm looking at this, I'm like, is it just me, or is this like an ugly head and shoulders, right? I mean, it's not technical or anything, but you look at that, you're like, kind of looks like one. I mean, it looks like it's forming that right shoulder out right there. And if that happens, I mean, well, I guess you can say hello to the $60, $58 range, somewhere in there if that happens. But again, the momentum's curling over on the daily right here. So this needs to get a turn back up. Again, it's a high flyer when it happens. And you can see, we've been through this before, right? Where you get this consolidation and then boom, explosion up to the next level, consolidation. And so, this is another one to watch out for. And I'm just trying to find stocks because there's so many stocks that have ran so far up. And this one right here at least has multiple points of consolidation areas. And it just needs to see if it can get momentum turned up into them. And they're not up 100x in the last 20 days or nothing. Now, sectors to watch out for going over, not just this month, next couple months. As I showed you Thursday for those who watch with the rotation and stuff. Utilities versus SPY, right? It's into this little Beautiful little pattern right here where it's back down here in the bottom, and every other time over since 2011 it gets down in here, you see it start to outperform the SPY because money starts to shift into different areas that are they're just not, there's more value, I guess, to finding them. There's maybe more room for them to move up, or maybe they want to go into a more defensive play and just have portions of their portfolio in there as well to see how they perform and stuff. And utilities actually do perform usually good in April and I believe May as well. So that's one to watch out for. Another one, watch out for industrials, right? Industrials have come down. This is versus the SPY, and you see on that, it's kind of in that rounding bottom formation right there. Kept coming down in that support area and popping and started to outperform. And a lot of these stocks, especially on the Russell 2000, are starting to perform very well. So we'll see if industrials continue to actually outperform the SPY, which they're doing right now, not handily, but they are outperforming the SPY. Now, earnings, you're rarely going to see any earnings. I mean, there's a lot of small caps right here coming on here. You probably recognize like a Dave & Buster's or something. I think a lot of these are off the Russell 2000, smaller cap stocks. There's Levi's. Can't believe BlackBerry is still in business. Let me know if there's any of these you see on here that you actually recognize or play or own for that matter. But we will have a lot of economic data coming right out of the gates with S&P 5 global manufacturing PMI, construction spending, ISM manufacturing, all after the bell opens. Some small bill auctions going on around 11:30. And then, of course, the one thing you're going to notice in this whole thing is a lot of Fed speakers this week, okay? And Jerome Powell will speak. Tuesday, JOLTS job openings, JOLTS jobs quits. You have some red folder news coming out here. Again, a lot of Fed speakers. Wednesday, you have ADP employment change, S&P Global Composite PMI final, Services PMI final, ISM Services Business Activity Employment, new orders, that's the big one, right? ISM Services PMI. So again, a lot of stuff going on there. Then, of course, 10,000 more, and including Jerome Powell will be speaking. Fed speakers going on Wednesday. Thursday, you're going to end up with continuous jobless claims, initial jobless claims, some more red folder news coming out. Again, 45 more Fed speakers. I say that sarcastically. Friday, of course, you're going to end up with average hourly earnings, manufacturing, non-farm payrolls, and the unemployment rate, which they do not expect to change. They're still keeping it at 3.9, so we'll have a lot more red folder news coming out this week, so it should create even more volatility in the market and stuff. So again, some areas are way up, some areas are lagging. Does that rotation I showed you Thursday continue into those more lagging areas? Not that they're not up, they just aren't up 300% in a month or whatever, like a lot of these stocks. So anyway, let me know what you think down in the bottom and stuff. I always appreciate you guys watching the videos, and I love to read the comments and watch your opinions. Hopefully the audio was fixed. I try my best to work on it. So there's both speakers coming out now. We'll see. So anyway, hit that like and subscribe button on your way out, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.